Hello and welcome to the Miko Bits show. And I'm your host, Miko Bits. And today we have Beryl, who is from Yield Guild Games, or YGG. And YGG is the premier gamer guild for play to earn gaming. And this is a really astonishing phenomenon, and it absolutely will change the balance of power in the blockchain gaming and NFT space. So I think that this will be a tremendously interesting show. Previously, we did have Gabby, who is also a co-founder of YGG. And so, this will be exciting to go a little deeper and to understand more about this amazing phenomenon of play to earn. So welcome, Beryl. Welcome to the Miko Bits show.
Yeah. Hi, thank you, Miko. Really great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. So, for those who missed the first episode with Gabby, can you explain what the problem that YGG solves?
Right. So in the Philippines, I'll give you an example. In the Philippines, we actually have a number of emerging players from provinces, and to be able to enter a game in, for example, Axie Infinity, you need three battle axes, right? Which used to cost 150 US dollars late last year, and now that has actually increased to 450 US dollars. And because of COVID and a number of people unemployed right now, they are unable to afford it. So YGG comes in and provides like scholarships. We call them scholarships, where we actually loan or let players play our assets for free. So they get to play the game, enter the game, and they earn what you call a smooth love potion as rewards, and they can convert that to Philippine pesos and purchase food that they can actually provide for their families.
Yeah, that's very exciting. So the phrase is play to earn. So they're earning money by playing this game, Axie Infinity. And of course, YGG is making this very accessible and making it economically possible. So that's very exciting. So, what I'd love to kind of understand more from you is a little bit about, your player base, right? So, you mentioned that you have a lot of players in the Philippines, which is very exciting. So I would love to learn, like, what kinds of people are playing in this way.
Oh, very interesting. So you actually have various players, but mostly those that have suffered from like COVID, just because during the lockdown they're unable to actually go to work, open their shops. Most of them are tricycle drivers, bus drivers, for example. Those that actually have like physical jobs, right, in the real world. And yeah, so because of COVID, they're unable to, they're unable to make a living. And these guys are mostly those that earn a living for like in the day, right? So they work during the day, they make money, and at the end of the working day, they use that money to actually buy food for the family. So they don't really have much savings that they keep for like a week or a month, right? So because of the lockdown for that, that actually it was more than a month, like 2 3 months. Yeah, they're unable to access loans, and yeah, so mostly those who are unbanked, no access to financial services, those that have suffered from like a loss of jobs.
That is astonishing that you're providing such a valuable financial service and a means of sustenance for people that are struggling. So I think this is a great achievement. I would love to understand some of the numbers. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit about, like, traction, or if you can kind of quantify the impact of YGG. I would love to understand how many people are involved or other such metrics.
Yeah. So We started YGG late last year, so October, November, from 200 Discord members, for example. Right now, we are more than 13, like maybe 15,000 members on Discord right now. We provide our scholarships through the Discord channel. So if somebody wants a scholarship, they just go on Discord and they just like ping, they just register through our Discord channel. Right now, we are almost hitting 2,000 scholars. I think so. We are growing really fast in the last like week. We've given 600 scholarships in the past just last week alone. So we're ramping that up, and hopefully sooner or later we'd reach 10,000 scholars.
That's great. And how do what are the unit economics? So, in terms of like, for example, one scholar, like what is the expected productivity and, how does that impact the guild itself?
Right. So in terms of productivity, so they earn SLPs. They could convert that into Philippine peso. So in US dollars term, they could earn up to 800 US dollars a month. And that's actually much more than their minimum wage.
That's truly amazing. And from the perspective of YGG, like is there a margin or some kind of a cut that comes back to the guild?
Oh, yes. So 70% would actually stay with the player. And then, 20% is actually given to the manager. So the manager is the one that actually helps the player come on board, makes sure that his account is set up. He knows how to play the game, teaches him, like tricks and how to, optimize for his SLPs, for example. And then, so 70% player, 20% manager, and then 10% goes back to the DAO, YGG.
That is tremendous and really exciting, right? So out of the $800 in a month, then you would probably see about $80 coming back to the YGG, through the DAO. So that's exciting value capture and it's exciting value creation. So,
It is.
congratulations. That's really amazing. So, I would love to understand from you a little bit about sort of how this got started and then a little bit about kind of how you came into this.
Oh, wow. So it was last year. Let me see. So Gabby and I, we've actually met each other a really long time ago. We've known each other for maybe since 2017 during the ICO period. So I was based in the Bay Area at that time. I was working on a tokenization platform, and I visited the Philippines just because we had clients back then, and Gabby was really into Ethereum, building on smart contracts, and there were really a few people who really knew the space, deeply in the Philippines. And he was really into gaming at that time. So we kept in touch, and after like exiting CapChain, I started consulting for financial institutions. Right, one of them was Union Bank in the Philippines, and I was product owner of one of their investment platforms. And late last year, COVID happened, and everybody had to work from home. So I saw more time really like tinkering around like DeFi platforms. And I was really surprised that Gabby was really, really deep into it as well. And there's really hardly, much people you could really, like talk to and share like farming ideas, right? And yeah, Gabby was amazing. So we shared a lot of our like strategies, like which farms should we go, what protocol should we like touch, so we've been playing around these DeFi protocols. Yeah, so we started with yield farming, and with our other co-founder Owl, and because Gabby was really deeply rooted into gaming, we just thought, what if we actually provided yield farming to gamers, right? How would that look like? And yeah, so this is exactly how Yield Guild Games came about.
I'm tremendously excited and gratified. I do want to make for my audience a disclosure, which is that my fund, Gumi Crypto's Capital, is invested in YGG. So, it is important to be transparent about our holdings. So but I do want to say that from that perspective, it has been very gratifying. We also met Gabby quite a while ago, even in the early days of blockchain. So he's been working on gaming before that, and then blockchain gaming since that. So very very OG. And it's great to have as well someone with your sophistication also joining this team. So it's a really exciting combination. So we'd love to kind of get a sense of your big vision, because I really feel like this is a incredibly deep and visionary play. So I'd love to understand a little bit about how you look at the future of this entire space.
Ooh, very, very interesting, Miko. So I see what we're doing at Yield Guild Games as an intersection between like gaming as well as DeFi, right? So we're in that position. So we'd like to actually offer various DeFi services to a lot of our players who are playing, who are currently do not have access to a financial institution or or an account, a bank account, excuse me. Yeah, so who do not have like access to like a bank account. And so like right now we're really like ramping up our player base. So we've been investing in various NFT assets, NFT games, and we're looking at leasing them out to our players through our scholarship program. And as soon as we actually like build out that user base, we're really hoping that we could extend other non-collateralized forms of loans, for example, being able to really extend yield-bearing, products as well for our players, where our players have the autonomy to actually choose what they want to do with their earnings, right, and the assets that they hold. So yeah, so that's the first step that we're doing. The second product that we're actually looking is a marketplace where you know um, YGG becomes like a super economy where we allow those that actually hold existing NFT assets to to loan it out or provide scholarships to our community, right? Just because we already have that community within YGG, we'd like to open that up to those that actually have existing assets, right? And yeah, so we'll have a marketplace where people would loan out, like various assets, building out, credibility of our community as well. The more assets that they borrow, the more that we learn how many hours they actually spend in the game, which accounts they interact with. Once we actually find out more about the players, it's like a Pandora box, right, for various financial services.
I think it's very exciting as a vision, right? Because, in a sense, when you talk about provisioning financial services, starting with yield products, right? It's effectively initially like a guild bank. But if you think about the guild as a form of labor union, right? Then in effect, you're also talking about creating a credit union, right? So, this idea of a bank that's, owned by guild membership, and becomes part of this collective power of this whole group. So, I think it's a very ambitious, it's a very exciting vision. And I think one of the things that people don't understand that well is they don't understand the scope of the size of the addressable possible base, right? Which is that, so what I'd love for you to comment on is, how many humans do you think could get involved in this?
Oh, wow. Massive, right? So uh, in the Philippines alone, 70% of the population is already unbanked, right? And a lot of them maybe like 40% of that, that's like 30 million, don't actually have, for example, documentation to be able to open accounts, or they don't really, you actually have a big population that before the pandemic, right? 7% is already unemployed. And then you have like 20%, another 20% underemployed, right? So that means to say that you have another 30 million people in the country that don't really have jobs, right? And yeah, so they would, they would seek for extra income or income to actually, put food on the table. And then on top of that, those that are affected with their current, job during this pandemic, and yeah, looking for extra income. So that's only in the Philippines, right? But think about the world population, 8 billion people in this world, and half of them affected by the pandemic, right? So that's 4 billion people. And I really think that, we would love to actually extend our services to be able to serve them.
I think one of the dimensions that I think is understood poorly is the size of the gamer market, right? Which I believe worldwide is something on the order of 2.3 billion gamers, right? And I think that compare that to the size of the crypto market, right? Which is generally measured in hundreds of millions, but definitely not even close to a billion, right? So I think that, in a way, the thing that's so fascinating about what's happened is that YGG is actually opening the door to crypto for first-time crypto users. So, maybe you can comment a little bit on that, and if I have it correctly or not. I'd love to understand how you see this as a first experience for crypto.
Yes, absolutely, Miko. So uh, when they actually enter, like Axie Infinity as a game or Zed Run, they don't really need to know that it's it's crypto. They don't need to know that it's DeFi, right? What they need to know is you need to have assets, which happens to be NFTs built on the blockchain, right? And enter a game, and they just play. And through gaming, right, and earning rewards, they really build up financial literacy, because when they start earning rewards, they start like calculating. So how many hours do I need to spend to be able to earn X amount of SLPs? Okay, when I have X amount of SLPs, what do I do with it? Do I reinvest it, right? Or do I spend it to actually put food on the table? Or should I buy my own assets, my NFT assets? And by the way, because there's a marketplace, I could also end up leasing them out to other scholars to help them and earn more yield. So yeah, so from our experience within YGG, it's really fascinating because you could see that their entire like mindset has really changed. Like from somebody who never had a savings account, right, in the past, now they're thinking, oh, I have extra income right now. Maybe I'll save a little bit to actually buy a house. And we've seen players buy motorcycles to houses to be able to, like maybe post pandemic, they'd be able to actually like get passengers and earn a living, right? So you could see that they've become semi entrepreneurs, and most of all, they're forming an investor mindset, because now they start like optimizing what they do with their resources, which is amazing to see.
Well, and I think that you have an incredible unit economic, right? Which is that you're really saying that you can earn up to $80 per month per user, if they are, and that's just from the perspective of the DAO, right? So the thing to me that's really compelling is that, if you think about customer lifetime value, right? Like this is already a financial services class ARPU, right? Like this is really a non-trivial amount of revenue that's value captured by the token. So I think that it's to me that combination of high ARPU, and then extremely large addressable market. It produces this extremely compelling company or project. Obviously, it's a DAO, but I guess the thing that is the most surprising is that you can do that well by doing that much good.
Yeah, I think that's the best part, Rico.
Yeah, it is astonishing. So I would love to kind of hear in terms of like how you see the roadmap, right? Because obviously you mentioned sort of yield products and financial services, which of course is an exciting roadmap item. Like what else is envisioned? I think you were talking about an open marketplace for lending in-game assets. So I'd love to kind of get your feeling about sort of what's on the development pipeline.
Right. So after that marketplace that we're building, we are looking at extending yield. So we're a DAO, and we'd like to share it to our token holders. And so we will be developing various vaults where, those that actually have and hold YG tokens can actually just stake their tokens within the vault, and they'd have a share of the yield that our players generate. And eventually we build out various vaults that have specific that are specific to an activity. So for example, we could look into a vault that's specific for breeding axes, right? So if you'd like to extend more scholarships, then I'd put in, for example, 100,000 US dollars into the vault, worth of YGG tokens, for example. And then behind that vault, YGG would start, breeding, and then acquiring, like SLPs and AXS, for example, to actually keep like breeding. So we'll take care of that. And we'll start, while we're breeding these axes, some of it will be loaned out, and then we'll just keep breeding it, uh, until the cost is equivalent to the investment that you've put in, and you will start earning SLPs, right? That's recurring SLPs from the number of players that actually have the NFT assets. Yeah, so it's a vault that would actually have returns of the activities through breeding. So that's
So
something that, yeah.
So you mentioned that you're a DAO, and obviously the value capture is in like a YGG token. So I think for my
Mhm.
audience's sake, like I'd love to kind of get a feeling from you as to like what your plans are with respect to the availability of the token or widespread availability. Like, do you have an envisioned schedule or an envisioned kind of a concept of a launch or broad availability of YGG token?
Oh, yes. So the network launch is end of July. And yeah, by end of July, we are looking at a sale either on Balancer or Sushi. But I think we're actually leaning towards Sushi with the Sushi team on Miso. So yeah, we'll announce more about our sale. We'll share our white paper really soon, maybe in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and it definitely has a mood of something that is very open, and I think that that has a potential, quite an exciting potential for listeners and for people in the community that are excited about your work. So, I guess what I would love to do as well is just to get sort of an idea, more of an idea about yourself. So, I know you mentioned a little bit about your background, which is exciting, but maybe you can help to share a little bit about your superpower. Like, what are your special barrel superpowers? How do you see yourself, and how do you see, this amazing, mission that you're on?
Right. So yeah, so my background has always been in the finance side, right? And I think so in venture capital, I was based in Shanghai for a bit, and then I eventually uh, was very early on at coins.ph. So Coins is the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the Philippines. I've looked into Bitcoin as an infrastructure to move funds. This was in 2014, 2013, 2014.
Amazing.
And that's how we actually got into remittances. And I was looking at, effective exchange rates, I was mostly in in Hong Kong or in Taiwan, really like working with OFWs, like our Filipinos repatriated from in like other countries, remitting like funds. So I spent a lot of time with them, really understanding their pain points into like remitting funds. Um, so I think like through that experience and the tokenization side after coins, this is where capchain is. Oh, by the way, coins was actually acquired by Gojek. So they're like Uber of
Right.
like Southeast Asia. And then like capchain was a tokenization platform. I feel that my advocacy, right? And I do believe that my advocacy is really focused on, advocating financial freedom and also financial literacy, right? It's about democratizing, capital markets, democratizing, access to financial services, right? And making sure that, okay, if users have the autonomy to actually do whatever they want with the funds that the rewards, the funds that they own, they need financial literacy to make an optimal decision. So I feel like freedom and literacy is something that could not be separated. And yeah, so this is something that through YGG is something that I could accomplish, right? It's an advocacy that I can personally, connect with and really, so yeah, so that's the reason why I personally am really passionate about, this project at YGG because it allows me to do so. And I really, really want to build out the more financial services for those that never really had access to it.
Yeah, that is very compelling. I know that in a lot of cases, this idea of having a manager within the guild and having the manager be, part of the earning structure is a very, very logical sort of scheme. The thing, especially as a coach and as someone who is, somewhat of an educator, right? So I guess my question would be, do you envision sort of standardization around either training or standardization around educational materials, because it does feel like that could produce a little bit of automation on onboarding, and ideally kind of help people who are players to kind of learn more to enable them to be financially empowered, and to understand their long-term financial success. So I'd love to understand your views on training and education within the player base.
Hmm. So maybe I could relate that to my own experience. I actually learn, it sticks to me, right? Like when I make mistakes and I actually experiment, right? Like I learn more through experimentation. But before I experiment, I actually end up, for example, looking into YouTube videos, these like YouTube tutorials, right? And then I
Mm.
actually really end up like looking at various tutorials from different people, right? And then when I get the pattern of how things are done, I try it myself, right? So I think with gaming, we see a number of gaming videos where people actually teach them, okay, this is how to open a MetaMask account. This is how to transfer a little bit of funds onto your MetaMask, and this is how you actually buy your first NFT assets by connecting your MetaMask into this site. So we see a lot of videos like that, and that helps a lot, right? So in terms of standardization, so I guess like for me, when I see various videos, you could get a sense who with the number of viewers as well, right? Who's probably legitimate versus somebody who isn't like legitimate, for example. And then you actually end up selecting those that you'd like to follow. So for first time gamers, for example, um, it would really help when you actually put together a list of materials that they could probably look at first time,
Yeah.
and just to guide them. But eventually, because this is autonomous, they end up selecting what they feel is comfortable. So I feel that it's important to engage everybody, like educators, for example, because people have different ways of learning. Some people would probably like a particular narrative when they're learning something versus another narrative, right? So I think options is necessary, right? But guidance is also necessary. So maybe guilds like what guild games can like provide like an initial list, for example, and then players are free to choose which one they feel more comfortable with.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And I do think that, for example, when you think about scaling, I think you mentioned Indonesia, and, obviously there are other languages and geographies, and, so from a scaling perspective, like, you definitely just can't assume that everybody is in the same language, or, so I think you're right that there does need to be a little bit more flexibility when it comes to education. But I do think that, from the perspective of participating in open systems, that participation and financial education, are absolutely, hand in hand. So I guess the thing that I think I'm interested to sort of understand is, how do you see kind of the go-to-market? Like, it feels to me like YGG right now is experiencing a hyper growth principally through word of mouth. Like, how do you see, what are the limits to scaling, and how do you kind of accelerate scaling?
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, so we've raised funding at YGG, and that we started acquiring assets through the funds that we've raised, and we've entered like another round to actually to be able to acquire more like assets, and we just realized there's only a certain point that we could just keep raising funds internally at YGG, right? And so it's really necessary for us to open this up into a marketplace where people could just lease out their own NFTs, right? And that way, uh, more scholars can participate. Because like right now, if you go to our Discord channel at Yield Guild Games, you'll see a number of scholars asking for a scholarship, and we're unable to actually
Yes.
match their demands right now. Yeah, and we're really like breathing at scale right now. And even we have like like an MVP that we're reaching out to, are opening it up to partners who would become investors. So it's kind of like our pre-vault right now. Without the vault, we're testing it out. We are asking various groups, for example, Index Co-op, for example, to participate and like invest to be able to buy their own axes, have their own farm, and onboard their scholars, right? And we'll match the scholars within our Discord with Index Co-op's investment. So that is a program that we're working on right now. Apart from our own, our own funds and like breeding, and then next step is really the marketplace, as I mentioned. So that is how we could scale. We would not be able to scale with our own assets, maybe initially just to test out a game, for example. If this new game within the blockchain is good, then we'll test it out by using our own our own resources. But eventually, if the game is really good, and more people are trying the game, we will probably need to open it up, but through partnerships and through the marketplace.
So it makes me think, and this is something where I would be happy to try to make a good introduction for you, is that the model that you're describing in this particular case is similar to the model of Kiva. So, in the case of Kiva, people around the world are effectively applying for lending from people who are typically in more advantaged countries, right? So one of the models that might be an extremely exciting or favorable model is to replicate something like the Kiva experience. Because in Kiva, people are like, oh, I need to buy a wagon and a donkey because I want to bring my handmade goods to the town, right? And if I can buy these items, then I can return your loan with this much interest, right? So people who are in Kiva are lending money, right? So to me, it's perhaps an identical model, and it may actually be possible for you to partner with Kiva directly and have people directly applying for scholarship on Kiva and saying, like, we would like people, to give us money to buy axes or to buy some in-game item, which they can return in the form of a loan. So it's a very interesting and proven user interface and model. So I'd love to hear your comments.
Oh wow, yeah. So I've not thought about that. But yes, I would definitely be open. I think that's a really great idea, especially if we'd like to scale and really I think our objective here is to be able to, democratize access to scholarships, right? So if
Yes.
Kiva is a way to really help us get more and onboard more scholars, we'd definitely be open to it.
Wonderful. Well, I will make introductions. I know, for example, that eBay has opened their global marketplace to sell NFTs. So it just feels like there are so many people on Kiva who are
Yeah.
getting US dollar loans to buy things like sewing machines or to buy to buy basically, you know, uh, critical pieces of business infrastructure that they need in order to earn, right? So, in a sense, it's the exact Kiva model, and people who are users of Kiva, if it's done even through the Kiva website as a partnership, why wouldn't the Kiva website owners be happy to
Yeah.
have hundreds or even thousands of scholars applying to buy things like axes? So I'm happy to make that introduction. I think that will be an exciting scalability solution, because they already have tremendous infrastructure and everything can be done potentially through, things like US dollars and credit cards, which is what Kiva mostly uses.
That's interesting, yeah. And also on top of my mind, just because I was talking about the vaults, right? And the vault will be a smart contract. I and we could use Kiva or like you mentioned eBay as the interface, but behind it could actually just be the smart contract. So if anybody just wants to invest, they can just like pay through their credit card, and it just goes to this smart contract, and the smart contract already automates the breeding and the allocation of like assets to scholarships, right? To scholars.
This would
Yeah, that
be
would be so much easier.
well,
That would be easy.
I'm sorry, but it would be a beautiful way for you to leverage your experience at coins.ph, right? Because it's very much fiat to crypto and back, right? It's a very interesting on-ramping and transparent user experience.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very exciting. So I think with what I'd love to get is sort of the big picture, right? Because if you describe kind of the big idea, like we're imagining potentially even hundreds of millions, if not billions, of players joining, right? And this creates an incredible future potential of a metaverse economy, of like a metaverse labor union, and of this kind of like reorganized relationship between labor and capital, right? So in some ways, this is such a kind of counterintuitive transformational device that's almost in the same vein as a privatized, decentralized universal basic income. So I guess for me, I'd love to have your comments about how does this transform society, and what's your opinion about sort of the net impact in the long run, because this model is truly foundational and disruptive.
Yeah. So right now, what we're quite certain within the we are certain within YGG is that jobs would start migrating to the metaverse, like virtual worlds, right? And gaming plays a really important role because I see gaming as meta like these smaller like economies within the entire metaverse ecosystem or economy. And each of these games would target various skills. So for example, Axie Infinity today would be skills to battle, for battling, right? And then you'd probably have another game that is kind of like a Tetris kind, and then another game that's like maybe requires more mathematical skills, right? And then a game that's more of like, for example, for kids, spelling bee, or it could be various games that target particular skills, right? And and yeah, I could actually see that as time goes by, there would be more game developers building tremendous games on the blockchain, and following the kind of token economics that Axie Infinity has, because Axie Infinity has such an amazing economic model with how their NFTs work and how the breeding concept works, by using, for example, by producing smooth love potions and then destroying SLPs if they start like breeding as well, right? So they have a certain way of, there's an interaction between these tokens within the Axie economy, right? And games should look into, for example, Axie to pattern how the token economics work. And so if that happens, now we're seeing that Axie is working, right? And I could see that a lot of game developers will just keep like, deploying and becoming like more creative into building their own economy into the metaverse. And that's when we'll see even more players coming in, because now they could start choosing which game they want in the metaverse, and it becomes much, much more diverse. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very exciting, right? Because when you look at an Axie, like an Axie is a beautifully made, fully formed, playable game that can be experienced in a mobile environment. So the requirements are not super steep. You don't need like a big graphics card and a game class PC or anything, right? So I think it's very, very accessible, and I think it's the first kind of perfect example of play to earn economics, right? But I think the thing that becomes very exciting is that it's really just the first example of a whole class of games, and I think that with YGG animating the economy of the game, right, then it becomes this very exciting partnership, and I think that there are many potentially up and coming games. So what I'd love to kind of hear from you are, are you looking at any promising new games? And if so, like what new games, are you excited about? Which ones are you excited to introduce to your player base? Like what do you see? Do you see potentially exciting games coming down the pike?
Yeah, so we've actually invested in F1 Delta, Illuvium. We're also in Sandbox, as an example. Quite recently, we participated in Ember Sword. Yeah, it's actually on Matic, so there's a lot of scalability that's happening as well. Zed Run too. So there, it's quite similar to Axie Infinity, where you actually buy these horses and you start like breeding them, and it's also very much like land economy, where land based, where you can actually start buying racetracks, for example. So yeah, so those are the kind of like patterns that we look at. They need to be NFT based, or built on the blockchain. They need to have some sort of like you know it has to be a land based economy too. Um, yeah, and it has a play to earn economics, where when people actually play the game, they actually earn rewards that can soon be converted to fiat, or like goods in the real world. So those are three criterias that we really look at when we select the games that we back.
That's very exciting. And, I do think that it will be important for you to have your own sort of capital base as you develop as a DAO, because you will want to make investments into these games even if you launch your open marketplace. So I do think that having a guild bank with guild items, it makes sense, right? It makes a lot of sense to have collectively owned assets as part of a guild, and it's something that I think traditional RPG players and traditional guild game players understand. So I think this is exciting. In terms of kind of the guild organizational structure, like how do you see the development of this structure?
Okay, so right now, it's still very much like the team, right? Because the founders, for example, started this, so we make a lot of the decisions, and then
Yes.
eventually we have people in the community, you know, uh, coming in, and then we also raised funds for the investors. So these are the early participants of the DAO. But eventually, when we do the sale, the decision making would eventually be much more decentralized, where community members start participating. They could push for their own proposals. Voting will start like happening. And eventually, when the lock-in period of participants are kind of, how do you call this, like they unlock, for example, and when they actually start selling the tokens, more participants as well in the community can even participate, right? So we'll be doing a couple of airdrops as well to make sure that we engage more of the community. um, so we encourage people passing their own proposals, voting as well. And so decision making will not have to rely on the founders, the members and investors. So that's the plan with DAO.
That's exciting. And, it's been absolute pleasure having you on the Miko Bits show. And, definitely welcome back anytime. So really appreciate all your insights.
Thanks, Miko. Thanks for having me here.
You bet.